Hey guys, welcome back to the Saints TV YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about the AFL Draft. Now, it's still a good 2.5 weeks away, but I am getting a fair bit of messages from you Sainers that are interested in my thoughts on draft night. So this video is going to be more about our first round pick, or pretty much just about our first round pick. Pick 9, push to pick 10 after Will Ashcroft gets to Brisbane. What will we do with that? There are some good players in the top 10. There are some players that may slip to pick 9, pick 10, but there are a couple in particular that are being talked about as the picks. For us, done a bit of research. I've had a bit of a read about a few players, and I thought I'd share my thoughts on them. Obviously, the first one is Cameron Mackenzie. Now, this is a guy that is part of our academy. Obviously, we can't get him. We can't bid on him. There's no such thing anymore. Thank you, AFL, for that. And he is touted to go within the top 10. So right in the range of where we're sitting. So if you look at his draft range that I'm looking at here, it's literally top 10, 9, 10, around there. That's exactly where we sit. And he's already said that he would like to go to St Kilda. You know, it wouldn't be bad if he doesn't end up at St Kilda, but he lives close to St Kilda. Obviously, he's part of the academy. It makes sense. So I've had a good look at some of his highlights. I've had a read about his strengths and his improvements, what he needs to do better. And I guess the easiest way for me to describe the players that I'm going to talk about is to kind of liken them to who their style reminds me of. So if you haven't watched highlights of Cameron Mackenzie, obviously I encourage you to do that so you kind of understand where I'm coming from. But when I watch him play, he moves. He's got the style of a Clayton Oliver. You know, someone that's not overly fast, but is very, very good around the contest, particularly when it comes to roving. So when there's a centre bounce or there's a stoppage around the ground, the way Cameron Mackenzie works through traffic, the way he can read the ball off the tap is excellent. Absolutely excellent. He's got very, very clean hands. Again, very much like Clayton Oliver. You know, when he gets the ball, he knows what he's doing with it, whether it's by foot or by hands. Now, I think he's probably a better kick than what Clayton was when he was first drafted. That's something that he's improved on over the years, and he's actually very good at it now. Mackenzie definitely has some good skills in terms of hand skills and kicking skills. His stoppage craft, as I mentioned, is very, very good. I think from what I've read, when the game, I guess, isn't stoppage focused or the stoppages are just a bit reduced in games, his outside game isn't huge. So you're not getting Cam Mackenzie for an outside spread game. You're getting him to be a contested bull. He's not going to be your standard inside mid. He will get on the outside because when he gets the ball, he's always moving. He's not the one at the bottom of the pack. He's always the one that's receiving and going. He doesn't have a great set of speed, but he's aggressive with the ball. So that kind of makes up for the lack of, I guess, leg speed. I think the fact that he's just a natural ball winner is excellent because I don't think we have too many in the midfield like that. Obviously, Jack Steele is like that. I wouldn't say Zach Jones is. Brad Crouch is. But outside of that, there's not too many that you could say they just find a way to get the ball at all costs. I think that he would definitely help us in that aspect. He's also 187 centimeters, which is excellent. Obviously, he's still quite young, so there's still room there to grow, and coming in at roughly 80 kilos. So fair size about him. You know, if you draft him, you probably think, see how he goes in the preseason, and he could definitely play round 1 next year, depending on how the lineup goes. His value for disposals is excellent from the highlights that I saw. Anytime he got the ball, he wasn't kicking backwards, he wasn't going sideways, he was very aggressive and backed his foot skills in. For me, I would absolutely be happy with us picking up Cameron Mackenzie at pick 9, pick 10. I think that he's definitely a player that will better us. He's a player that we could use in the midfield, absolutely. But is he the top pick out of the players that I'm talking about today? Is he the one that I would use our draft pick on, our first round pick? Maybe. The other player is Mattaes Phillipou. Now, he is from Woodville, West Torrens, interstate, but he has said that he's happy to play anywhere. You know, and that A lot of players say that, but at the same time, you've got to take that into account that maybe a year or two down the line, they want to go home. But with him, I think at this point in time, you've just got to look at his ability, and if he's good enough, you draft him. Now, from his highlights, from what I watched from him, I'll be dead honest, I was more impressed with what I saw from him than what I saw from Cameron Mackenzie. Phillipou, now we talk about Mackenzie reminding me of, say, a Clayton Oliver, just in the style. I'm not saying he is Clayton Oliver. I'm not saying he's going to be. I'm just saying in the way that he moves, the way that he reads the ball, he reminds me of Clayton Oliver, loosely. Phillipou reminds me of the Bont. Now, not just because he's a left footer, not just because he's 190 centimeters, he's not very, very tall, but he's tall for a mid, 89 kilos, very good size about him. Not only can he play midfield as a big-bodied mid, but he can also go forward and impact the scoreboard, like Bont. The way that he can impact the scoreboard is critical, and I think, we've got some players like that can play mid and go forward, but I don't think we have enough. I think we've got more dedicated mids than we do mids that can kick goals. Jack Steele can kick goals, but he doesn't rotate midfield forward that often. Gresham can. Then you got Brad Crouch, who doesn't really impact the scoreboard that much. Winhager, pretty good for a goal, but you'd like to think that under Ross, he's probably going to be a bit more of a midfield-focused player. I think that Phillipou has more X factor than Mackenzie, and I've seen a few articles already, and I'll talk about one shortly, that liken him to, we didn't get De Goey, we didn't get that X factor match winner that can kick goals and go into the midfield, but Phillipou could fill that void and could be available at our pick. His strengths are aerial ability. He's a very good overhead mark, for obviously 190 centimeters. His overhead marking is great. I would like to think that aerial ability and overhead marking is basically the same thing, but they're listed here as separate. Athleticism, clean hands, scoreboard impact. In terms of his improvements, field kicking, fair enough. I think most players, when they get drafted, aren't absolute elite kicks. Unless you're Nasai, Wangani, and Malira, most of the time they get the ball, they're very impressive with it, but sometimes they turn it over. I think that's just the case with a lot of these players. And consistency, which again, I think is quite similar. I think that he probably would be my pick at pick 9 and 10 from what I think we need the most. I think we want match winners. We want X-Factor gun match winners. And not only has he got the versatility to go forward and go midfield, but he's good at both. When he goes into the midfield, it's proven here. Some of his stats, he kicked 6 goals, 32 disposals in a 100-point demolition of Double Blues. I think he had 32 disposals and 5 goals against the Bulldogs last season. He is capable of finding the ball, 6.6 tackles a game, that's 6.6 marks a game, 5 tackles a game, 4 clearances, averaging of 1.5 goals per game. Is outstanding in anyone's opinion. So I think that he probably, if he was available at pick 9 and 10, that's who I would be picking. I think that Cam Mackenzie looks to be a very, very good player, but I think in terms of what we could use more of, I think that Phillipou, with his size, with the fact that he can rest forward. I know that, you look at a Jack Billings, I think that's who we would want Jack Billings to be. We want Jack Billings to be a player that can go into the midfield consistently and get 25, 30 touches, but also go forward and kick, 1 or 2 goals a game. That'd be excellent. That hasn't really eventuated. Could Phillipou fill that void? Could he be the player that we thought Billings was eventually going to be? Ironically then, Bont for Billings, that whole conversation, we might be able to get the next Bont in the draft with Phillipou, He's touted to go top 10. I don't think he's going to go top 5. I think he's got probably the ability to go top 5, but I wouldn't say anywhere more than that. I think he's looking at probably 7 to 11 range, most likely, with what other clubs want. And I think that absolutely, based on, I think, what the club needs, what I've seen from him, and the upside from him, absolutely he would be top of my list. But if he goes and Mackenzie's available, I'd be equally as ecstatic to get Mackenzie. So I think those two are probably my picks. Let's just kind of compare the two just so we know. So obviously Mackenzie is more dedicated as a midfielder. He's a great ruck rover, finds the ball a lot, Not super pacey, doesn't go forward and kick goals, but he's very good by foot going forward and sets up goals. And then you've got Mattaes Phillipou, who's more versatile, a bit pacier, left-footed, kicks goals, bigger in terms of height and obviously weight. And I think he's got a bit more X factor. You know, if you want a player that's keen to put his hand up to be a match winner, I think that Phillipou's got those traits. I think the way that I've seen him play in what I've watched, he really is happy to take on that responsibility. He looks like he wants to be the man. And I guess that's what this article that I'll quickly talk about here yesterday on SEN kind of alludes to. They mentioned that St Kilda holds the 9th pick in this year's draft. Cal Toomey believes they are looking to find a match winner. It's no secret that the Saints were all in on Jordan De Goey. We know how that went out. Toomey named South Australian midfielder Mattaes Phillipou as a player who could potentially fill that role from the draft, that could be that match winner. And then they mentioned Oliver Hollands. But I think Carlton are very heavily into Oliver Hollands. His main trait is just his two-way running, endurance, just doesn't stop running. You know, another D-Mac, if you will. And so I don't think we really need someone like that. And then I think last resort, I don't know if we'd be looking at going for a key forward, but I've watched a lot of Matthew Jefferson, and he's pretty impressive. We obviously do have a fair few supporting acts for Max King, but none of them are really dedicated forwards, like a Rue Cozzy sort of combination, which obviously has worked so well for us when Ross was last coach. Matthew Jefferson could be that. He's 194 centimetres, 76 kilos. His range is around about 8 to 14, so he will be around that pick as well. But I think priority is midfields in this draft. I think if we can pinch someone else, if we can push up the draft to get a pick in the teens, we can still trade drafts, and maybe then that opens the door for Matthew Jefferson. That would be great. But I think with our first pick at pick 9 and 10, I would be staggered if we don't get one of Cameron Mackenzie or Mattaes Phillipou. There's also Elijah, I think Satis, who's another midfielder, has got a bit more pace compared to the other two that I've just mentioned. Finds the ball. His range is top 5. So I don't think he's going to be available at our pick. If he does fall to 9-10, I would be amazed, and we should absolutely look at him. He's very pacey, pretty clean by foot, but his defensive pressure is not really that great. Ross Lyon might not like that, or he might see that as a positive and can work with that. But his production, his clean hands, his vision in particular, the way that he gets the ball and finds a target very, very quickly by hand or foot is impressive. So he's another one that we could be looking at, but obviously, as I mentioned, he could be top 5, so I'd be surprised if he's 9 and 10. I think the most likely, as I mentioned, are Mackenzie and Phillipou. So that's a bit of information on those guys, on those players. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on who you think we should be going for. You know, do we go for Cameron Mackenzie, who's just, you know, he's going to be that midfielder. He's the midfielder in the selection range that we're looking at? Or do we go for someone that's got a bit more X factor, can go forward and kick goals, has a bit more versatility about him in Phillipou? Like, what do you think is most important for us? I don't think we can lose if we select either, to be honest. I think both are going to turn out to be some very, very good players. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, Sainers. That's kind of my rundown on it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please comment your thoughts. Who do you want us to select with pick 9, pick 10 at this year's AFL Draft? I may do another video closer to the draft to kind of iron out the remaining picks. You know, we've still got time to trade picks, so we'll see what happens on that front, whether that changes or not, and I'll keep you posted on all draft news in the lead up. But yeah, I'll wrap it up there. Saying please comment your thoughts, and most importantly, hit subscribe. Let's hit 5,000 subs by next season. Fingers crossed we can get there. And I'll be back next week for Saints TV Weekly on Monday. But until then, Sainers, take care of yourselves, and as always, go you mighty Sainers. See you guys.